Students are back on campus, basketball is back to winning ways, and we're back in the studio, but I'm still going to be dressing in my pajamas from the waist down. Hello, I'm Siobhan Nolan.
And I'm Tyler Small. The women's basketball Wait, what do you mean look at the camera? I'm looking at it right in front of me. We're not on Zoom anymore? You're watching LaSalle TV's home for Explorer Athletics SportsLine.
Welcome to SportsLine. We've got a lot of basketball to talk about, including big wins over St. Joe's, Richmond, and Drexel.
And later, we went from having no sports to talk about at all to being able to talk about literally all of them. Let's see what we have coming in the spring previews.
But first, let's take a look at our SportsLine top 3.
Jared Kimbrough was named the Philadelphia Big Five Player of the Week this week after shining in LaSalle victories over St. Joe's and Richmond. Kimbrough recorded a career-high 24 points along with 6 rebounds and going 12 for 13 in shooting against St. Joe's. He continued his hot streak against Richmond, notching 12 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 blocked shots.
Number 2, the men's basketball earned a huge win over St. Joe's on MLK Day. Several big individual performances propelled the Explorers to victory, including Jared Kimbrough's career-high point tally, freshman Anwar Gill matching his career-best 15 points, and the team setting a season-high in points in the 90-83 triumph over the Hawks.
And number 3, last Wednesday, men's basketball head coach Ashley Howard announced that sophomore Ayinde Hakeem is leaving the men's basketball program. Hakeem will be continuing his collegiate basketball career at another school. And Siobhan, when we were talking about this earlier, you actually wrote in the script that I should be tearing up for that point, and you're right.
I figured you would, yeah.
Because in all honesty, first off, we both wish, or well of wishes to Ayinde Hakeem, wherever he may bring his career afterwards. Mm-hmm. He's going to be playing phenomenal basketball wherever he goes because I think he is such a special talent.
He really is, and he's a name that we've talked about a lot on SportsLine. It seems like every time there was a men's basketball game, Hakeem would be contributing with points, rebounds, assists. We would just always be mentioning Ayinde Hakeem. So it is going to be a loss for the program, but I think we can really be proud that even though he'll be at another school, his abilities really shined here, so we can kind of be proud of producing him like that.
Absolutely, and I mean, it just comes off of the pure athleticism that he had. Mm-hmm. He could jump out of the gym, he had the speed, he had the steal potential, he had the breakaway potential, but above all else, he just knew the game inside and out. And it's going to be fun to see him wherever he goes in the future.
Absolutely. That's it for the top 3. Now let's see how our teams did in this week's recaps. On January 9th, the men's basketball team fell to UMass on the road. Despite standout performances for freshman Anwar Gill and senior David Beatty, the Explorers couldn't overcome a dominant UMass side, losing the matchup 83-67. The team continued their road trip, traveling to Virginia to face off against George Mason. A less than ideal start to the game, along with shooting a season-low 26.1% from the field, saw the Explorers fall to the Patriots 75-42. In Atlantic 10 play, LaSalle faced off against Davidson at home on January 16th. A very offensively strong Davidson side held the blue and gold all game, eventually ending in a 77-53 loss.
After a few tough losses, things began to look up for the Explorers after defeating rival St. Joe's 90-83. Junior Jared Kimbrough carried the blue and gold to victory after shooting a career-high 24 points in 12 of 13 shooting. He also matched his season high in rebounds with 6 and also added a block as well to steal the win for the Explorers. Next up, the Explorers traveled to go up against Richmond, and 6 Explorers recorded double figures in the game in a total domination over the Spiders. The Explorers shot 57% from the floor and being led by sophomore Sharif Kenny, who finished with 17 points and 4 assists in the game, and it ended in an 84-78 back-to-back wins for the blue and gold.
On to women's basketball. The Explorers kicked off back-to-back games against St. Joe's on January 8th. Sophomore Claire Jacobs led the team with 13 points, while freshman Michelle Kazicki recorded a career-high 6 points, along with 5 rebounds. Despite some promising offensive spurts, the Explorers dropped the first game 65-36. They bounced back in the next game, only trailing for 17 seconds as Claire Jacobs scored 21 points and a career-best 9 rebounds. Senior Kate Hill recorded a career-best 15 points, while fellow senior Deja King notched a 10-point game. The 81-66 win is tied for the largest over the Hawks in program history. The wins kept coming as the Explorers picked up their first win against Drexel since 2009. Once again, Claire Jacobs led all scorers with 17 points, while Deja King topped herself from last game, dropping a season-best 12 points. Senior Haley Hill had a record night as well, registering a career-best 12 rebounds.
The women then dropped a close one, 65-60 against St. Bonaventure, snapping their win streak at 2. They would quickly bounce back and go on a roll, starting with Duquesne. Junior Kayla Sproul dropped 24 points, leading the Explorers 67-63 in the win for the blue and gold. Then had a meeting against St. George at home, with George Washington's first up against the Explorers. LaSalle took a 1-point lead in the half before surging into the fourth quarter to take the win 60-45. Finally, they met with George Mason, which proved to be a close matchup through the first 3 quarters. LaSalle once went up the floor in the fourth, outscoring George Mason 21-7, leading them to a 56-49 win against the A10 rival.
A lot of good basketball to talk about.
Absolutely.
The wins over St. Joe's were amazing. I mean, they're always a huge rival for us, and to get wins, and really big wins too, 90-83, I mean, that's nothing to sniff at. And I think that for the men's and women's teams, those are really big motivators to keep momentum up for the rest of the season.
I mean, absolutely. And now for the future, really cool announcement coming out that for the next 3 Martin Luther King days, they're going to be playing the LaSalle St. Joe's Philadelphia rivalry matchup here for the Atlantic 10 play. Mm-hmm. Next year it's going to be at St. Joe's. We were lucky to host it here. Hopefully the next time we do host it, we'll have fans at it because it's just a very monumentous occasion. But a lot of good things to look at. We'll start with the men's. Mm-hmm. I mean, now they're off to a 7-9 start, 4-5 in the A10. And coming off of it, Jared Kimbrough has just been playing out of his mind.
Oh yeah, definitely deserved Big 5 honors this week. Big in the game over St. Joe's, big in the game over Richmond. That was a game that LaSalle was not expected to win. They were definitely underdogs, and they came out. And obviously it wasn't just Jared Kimbrough, but his contributions are definitely standout amongst everyone else. So he's been really dominant. Anwar Gill is also a name that we talked about a lot. So just, again, with the individual performances on these teams, and coming together as a team, they're really turning it up this season, and I think it's going to be very exciting going forward.
Anwar Gill, Clifton Moore have been those unsung heroes for this season. Mm-hmm. We look at Christian Ray and Scott Spencer have been really taking the next step forward. But above all else, I think, we talked about Ayinde Hakeem unfortunately leaving the program. The reason why, who's been taking his spot, is Jameer Brickus.
Yeah.
Jameer Brickus has been playing out of his mind, 7.7 points per game, 3.5 assists per game. Only 33 turnovers, but he's bringing the ball up the floor. Hakeem, to this point of the season last year, had less points, less assists per game, and he gave up more turnovers throughout the season. So it's just a really big uptick, but it's being led by Jack Clark. He is that guy. They needed a score from the start, and Jack Clark can now, fortunately, be that guy that just on a given night can drop upper teen numbers and lead the Explorers team.
And that's really promising because even though obviously Hakeem's going to be a big loss for the Explorers, we're not going to be feeling it for too long because we have so many guys that can just cover that hole and cover that missing spot and still put together these amazing team performances and win against St. Joe's and Richmond and all these big A10 teams that pretty soon LaSalle is going to be the team to beat and not the underdogs.
Absolutely. And then you say the same for the women's side. 8-8 now in the season, 4-4, floating around 500 both in the A10 and overall. And it's led by Claire Jacobs. I mean, you were saying it in your recap. Claire Jacobs, we didn't know what we were going to see from her. She had a phenomenal freshman year. We almost assumed it's almost hard to keep your expectations down for a player like that. Mm-hmm. But she's up in points. She's at 15 points a game now, up from 13. 5 rebounds per game, that she's doubled what she had last year. 39% field goal percentage, that's up, and 30%. She's able to shoot it from the outside now. So it's been huge uptick. She hasn't taken a step back. She's taken a step forward. And behind her is Kayla Sproul, who has almost doubled her points per game totals this season.
Yeah, and with Claire Jacobs, obviously she wasn't going to be a one-season wonder, but the fact that in so many of these games, not only does she lead LaSalle in scoring points, she leads both teams in scoring points, which is absolutely amazing. So she's going to be a great player. She's going to be a very influential player, and we're really lucky that we're going to have her for the next couple of years. Kayla Spurl, again, very influential player as well, like you were saying. They're just putting up these amazing numbers that not just set the tone for LaSalle, but for both teams in the game. Like, we really are, the blueprint, the moment, and that's really great for the team going forward, because when you have that influence, again, LaSalle becomes the team to beat and not the underdogs.
Yeah, and it's huge. And there obviously are some down spots to this Explorers team. I mean, they're getting 9 rebounds per game from Spurl and Jacobs on their own. And Jacobs has done a phenomenal job of becoming a stretch big, but they really don't have that inside presence that they're really looking for, so they're going to have to find that around it. But the only benefit you get from not having that inside force is having the attack on the outside to be able to go up and down the floor. And Masi Antonio is the number one person for that, because she's taken 126 total attempts from the floor this season. Over half of them have come from beyond the arc, and she's shooting the lights out. And
that's a problem that it's pretty easy to fix. That's not a super glaring hole in the team. So, that's the thing where if we can get that solved, we can get that rectified. I mean, that only makes the team stronger. So that really speaks volumes to this team, their abilities, their all around just amazing talents. So again, men's and women's, super exciting. We are in for a great season for both teams.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it any better myself. So now we are going to go from those recaps that we just saw on the men's and women's side. But when we come back after this quick break, we're going to take a look into the busy spring season coming up for the Explorers, as both the fall season and the spring season come to the Explorers season.
They're kind of close to an egg.
An egg?
An egg.
How does a general lead to an egg?
There is to an egg.
There is a show for that. It's called Backstage Pass.
See the new library plan?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, they're doing stuff in the library.
Oh. In the library?
Yeah.
The new library.
There is a show for that called LTV News, where the action never stops.
I wonder how the basketball team is.
There is a show for that called SportsLine.
So are you a Carson Wentz or Nick Foles guy?
More of a Nate Sudford team.
Oh, really? Interesting. Wonder where we can hear about Philly sports.
There's a show for that called Sports Talk Philadelphia.
You like Family Feud?
Yeah.
You like all shows like that?
Yeah.
I wonder if LaSalle has a show like that. That'd be kind of cool.
There is a show for that called Q&A.
I really wish that we could just display our talents.
Yeah, me too.
There is a show for that called Explorers Got Talent.
All this and more on LaSalle TV.
The sun of fire and beauty, destruction and life. Something so magnificent you can't even look at it. My son of fire and passion, life until death. Something so magnificent you can't look away. Maybe because we don't look at the sun, we are afraid that we might not be able to let go of the beauty that just might end up destroying us.
Hooked to the double feature and you're on my mind. Return of the creature that crawled up from the subway line. You're always keeping me waiting, keeping me waiting for you.
Welcome back. After the fall sporting season was postponed due to the pandemic, the Atlantic 10 has moved their season to the spring. That means we are about to have a lot of sports here on campus. 77 home games are ahead of us, so let's get you ready.
Although the rosters may be smaller than we are used to, the volleyball team has a great mix of veterans and underclassmen to roll into the season this upcoming 2020-21 season. Where they went 8-6 last season, or 2019 I should say, and they look to continue their grow in the playoff resume after the trailing victory against George Washington. The list of returners is highlighted by their talented outside hitters in Samantha Graver, Elizabeth Osborne, and Riley Lowe, who all look to attack the final season of LaSalle volleyball with one goal in mind, the Atlantic 10 Championship. They'll be hitting the floor tomorrow at the Big Five rival Temple to kick off the 2021 season.
Although it feels like a century ago, the baseball team's final game was a blowout victory against Rider University 14-4 on the road. They look to carry that explosive offense to the new season, as the Blue and Gold will be bringing back 23 members of the team from last year. Of that list, we will get to see the slugging catcher Tatum Levins, the power bat in center field Jack Cuccinata, and the sweet glove of Alphonse Zadala. The two horses of the starting rotation will be back on the mound again as well, as Colin Scanlon and Manny Corcoran will look to eat innings again for the Explorers. Coming to aid the returners will be another great crop of freshmen, as 9 freshmen will be suiting up this season for LaSalle.
7 years ago, the LaSalle softball season unfortunately ended with an 8-0 loss against Stony Brook. Although this past season didn't bring the results the Explorers would have hoped for, a number of moves this offseason have things looking up for the season in August. A pair of pitchers in junior Sarah DeWallo and sophomore Regan Ware were added to the roster, both transfers from Siena University and Ashland University. 2 coaches changes were made as well, with Sarah Prezioso being promoted to the interim head coach of the program. LaSalle also welcomed Erica Molnato as the assistant coach overseeing the pitching staff.
The men's soccer team had an up-and-down season in 2019, finishing 8-9-1 overall, 4-4 in the Atlantic 10. But this year's team looks forward to the new slate, as they welcome the 2021 season with 11 newcomers to the Blue and Gold, including the sole senior this year, transfer Pol Rainy Geralt from Barcelona, who will look to add to the team's offensive attack. Leading the youthful Explorers roster will be goalkeeping duo Carlos Mora and Brett Werner, and the team leader in goals in 2019, Nigel Buckle.
After a phenomenal 11-8-1 season for the women's soccer team, the Explorers look to take on McCarthy Stadium this spring the same way they did in 2019 season. In 2019, the Explorers started the season 4-2-1, including key victories against NJIT, Florida Gulf Coast, St. John's, and Delaware. The star goalkeeper for the Explorers, Claudia Jenkins, will return between the pipes for her senior season, alongside the runner-up in goals, assists, and points last season, Amira Lokitis. Returning to action for the Blue and Gold, LaSalle will welcome a talented group of homegrown talent, as all 7 of their new freshmen come from the tri-state area.
So a lot to look forward to in the spring. We will have quite literally every single sport going on at once, but there's a lot to look forward to. So many moves have been made in the off season. All of the sports seem to be looking on the up and up. So what are the sports, Tyler, that you are most excited to cover this season?
I say it every year, and it means even as much as it could at all, I should say, this season, the volleyball season is going to be great. Unfortunately, it's going to be their last season, as we've talked about earlier. We won't get into that. But what we will get into is the players coming back, and that is Samantha Graver. She had led the team last season in 402 kills, but 175 errors. She was able to spread it around a little bit more with people like Osborne in her corner and other people like bringing the ball up. But when you really look at it, she just needs to bring down the errors, and she's going to have a phenomenal season. She had a 3.65 kill per set, and it's going to be highlighted playing alongside Osborne, who's also going to take that huge step up with 229 kills and 132 errors. And the number 1 player that I'm going to look for in this is Isa Lopez. She's a true freshman coming into this season. She's going to be the libero for this season, and they're going to be utilizing her with the loss of Hess. Kind of just weren't really expecting her to be thrown right into the fire, but I think there's going to be great things from Lopez.
Oh yeah, that'll be great. I personally am very excited for men's soccer and women's soccer too, because we have 2 very good soccer teams here at LaSalle. The women's team dominated last season. They just went on a tear. So many good players to talk about. But the men's team is super exciting because they have those 11 freshmen coming in. Overall, it's a very young team. They just have the 1 senior from Barcelona. But they do have a fair number of foreign talent, which is going to be super advantageous to get that mainly European experience in the team. That's going to add a lot of flavor. It's going to add a lot of talent, creativity, ability. So I think that they did okay last season, but this season is really going to be one where they can really shine with all of that young talent.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you bring that up because for this soccer season, both men's and women's, they're in completely different situations here, but it all comes down to the goaltending. Claudia Jenkins, coming into her senior season now, It's hard to play better than she did last year. Pretty much the best goaltender in the A10, I'll say it here first.
Yeah.
And we're going to see what she can get out of her senior year, what she the initiative she has with all the outside coming on. Because for all these sports, it's going to be difficult to play with everything surrounding it.
Yeah.
So we'll see what Jenkins can bring to the table. And on the other side, the duo of Mora and Werner. Werner had a much better season last season, 100 points higher in save percentage. But we'll see what both of them can bring to the table, who's going to win that battle in the offseason. And we'll see that by who's starting opening night.
I mean, there was a LaSalle men's soccer alumni in the MLS playoffs
Yes.
this year, so
You know the
not
coaching
saying,
is
I'm
there.
just saying,
You know
exactly.
the coaching is there.
Absolutely.
So,
So that just about wraps it up for us this week. If you can't make it out to see the Explorer Report, be sure to tune in next week for our coverage. Keep up with this week's other sporting events by visiting goexplorers.com or check out this week's edition of The Collegian.
also, check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/LaSalleTV or on Twitter and SportsLine LTV. We welcome you to send your thoughts and suggestions there. This week's poll is by Jamie Smith, is what is the best saint holiday? St. Valentine or St. Patrick?
For our SportsLine team, I'm Siobhan Nolan.
And I'm Tyler Small. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the game.